This example looks at measures of central tendency in SPSS. So let's say that I wanted to create measures of central tendency for three variables: race, class, and education. Well, I can do that in SPSS using the Analyze pull-down menu. So if I just go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and Frequencies, and I actually don't want to look at the frequency table, so I can uncheck this box next to Display Frequency Tables and just click OK. And now we're going to select the variables that we want to use for this example. So the first one was going to be race. I can just type that in, move it over to here where it says variables. And then I can type in class and move it over, and education, and move that one over. And so notice that you can do several different variables simultaneously. So if you click on statistics, you can now request the different measures of central tendency that you want. So just put a check mark next to mean, median, and mode, and click continue. And then click OK. And SPSS will create a table of measures of central tendency for these three variables. And so here's what it looks like. Now we might want to remind ourselves what these values actually mean. And so if we go up here to the Utilities pull-down menu and we go to Variables, we can pull up code books for our different variables. Let's just kind of move this over a little bit here. And we can zoom in here. And let's see if we can interpret our results. So for first, we have the race of the respondent. We see that the mean is 1.35. Well, what exactly does that mean? Well, we're going to find race here. And we see race as the following coding. So 0 is coded non-applicable, 1 is white, 2 is black, and 3 is other. So a mean of 1.35 basically is some number that falls in between categories. And we can see that for this nominal variable race, the mean is just not an appropriate measure of central tendency. It's going to give us some kind of nonsense result that falls in between categories that we can't interpret. So we wouldn't exactly look at this value. We would look at some of the other ones to get a sense of what's in the middle, or what's most common. And so looking at the median, we see that the value is 1. However, it being a nominal variable, race doesn't really have any kind of rank ordering. And so again, the median wouldn't be an appropriate statistic, just like the mean. And so we shouldn't really look at the median or the mean in this case. The thing that we should look at is the mode. And we can see that the mode is 1. And the coding for race 1 is white. And so basically, we can interpret that by saying that most cases in our sample are white. Now, what about class identification? Well, we can look at the codebook entry for class as well. And we see here that we have the following coding. 0 is inapplicable, 1 is lower class, 2 is working class, 3 is middle class, 4 is upper class, and 5 is no class. And there's various categories of missing and don't know. Of course, those aren't used. Only the valid cases are used in the analysis. And so we see that we have a mean of 2.39. So again, that's some number that falls in between the working class and the middle class categories. That doesn't mean anything in the context of this variable. And so we wouldn't want to look at the mean for this ordinal variable class. The mean is only used for interval ratio variables like education. We do see that we find a median of 2. And so the median here corresponds to working class. So that means that half the cases are working class or below, and the other half are working class or above. So working class is basically the category that's in the exact middle. And we see that the mode is 2, which again is working class. And we can interpret that by saying that most people are working class. All right, what about education? Well, education turns out to be interval ratio. So it doesn't have any particular codes. The actual numbers of years of schooling are being coded for this variable. And so we have a mean of 13.53. And so we can say that basically, on average, people have about a little over 13.5 years of education. The median is 13, which means that half the cases have 13 years of education or less, and the other half have 13 or more. And the mode is 12, meaning that the most common educational category is 12 years of education, or equivalent to probably like a high school degree. Now, what if we wanted to do this same analysis in PSPP? How would we do that? Well, let me go to PSPP. And so notice that I've already brought in my data. The way that we do this in PSPP is very similar to how we do this in SPSS, right? So if we just kind of go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and Frequencies, we would just pick the variables that we want to use. So race, class, and education, we just highlight and move over to where it says variables. Let's try that again. There we go. And then we just basically put a check mark next to any statistic that we want. So we want the mean, we don't want the standard deviation, we don't want the minimum, we don't want the maximum, we want the mode, and we want the median. So we just put check mark next to any of the statistics that we want, we click OK. And PSPP basically will make separate tables for each of these variables. So if we look at it here, we see that the mean of race is 1.35, which we said was uninterpretable. The mode is 1, which you said was white, so most people are white. We see for class that the mean is in between categories. The mode is about 2, which means that most people are working class. The median, or the 50th percentile, is also 2, so that's the middle value like we found earlier. And then for education, our last value, let's just zoom in on that. We find the same results that we found before, right? So we have a mean of 13.53, a mode of 12, and we have a median of 13. And so basically, we got the same results using PSPP that we used in SPSS. And both of these statistical packages are sort of equally adept at calculating measures of central tendency. So really, we could use either one of them.